Help me paint the broader picture as to how hormone levels change in men as we age.
Okay, well, here's the benefits of testosterone: sense of well being, assertiveness, memory, recall, the ability to learn new things, competitiveness, sleeping well, good sex, no depression. These are all the benefits of it.
Dr. Mark Gordan, welcome to the Roadman podcast.
Thank you very much. All the way from sunny California.
Don't depress me. I feel like I start every podcast where someone's just gloating about the weather where they are, and I'm stuck looking out the window at the rain.
It's too hot. It's too hot. But I just came back from Thailand where it was even hotter. But
I was watching the new Harrison Ford movie, the newer version of Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones,
right.
and it got me thinking. We're all on this search for this magic elixir for everlasting life. They call it the Holy Grail, but that's
Sure.
what I'm hoping to pull from you today: the answers to how we concoct this cocktail for everlasting life and vitality. I think that's a humble enough request.
I think it's what, as you said, all of us are looking for. How can we extend not only the time that we're here, but the quality of time that we're here without suffering the psychological and cognitive impairment that comes with age, and also with things like riding bicycles or being in motor vehicle crashes or the military that I take care of.
Yeah, it's fascinating because for a long time you heard people saying, I just want to live longer. But when you unpack that, you actually don't want to just live longer. Who wants
No.
to have like that last decade of their life, that marginal decade where they're infirm, where they've low standard of living? I had a prominent cycling coach, maybe the greatest ever cycling coach, on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he shared with me a story of his friend who was 92 years old. He rode his bike that morning, ran that evening, and then dropped dead. And he's like, well, that's what I want for my life. He lived basically the same as he did in his 20s, all the way up till his mid 90s, and dropped dead with like minutes of bad health, not decades of bad health.
Right. That's the way to do it. Here in the United States, the majority of hospitalization happens in our later years when everybody gets sick. And that's because we don't spend the first half of our life making sure that the second half of our life is high quality. So, you run up to 50 and then you start having all the medical problems because you haven't taken into consideration, the quality of the body or how to improve the body.
We're in quite a stress-induced type world at the moment. There's a cost of living crisis as well on this side of the pond, and people are feeling the pinch. And it got me wondering, how does stress affect our immune system?
Great question. The stress raises a chemical, a hormone called cortisol that we all know as the stress hormone. Well, in my area of neuroendocrinology, which deals with the brain and the hormones in the brain, the chemistry and the immune system, cortisol will cause a chemical to be lost in the brain called fractalkine. And fractalkine regulates the inflammation in the brain. So when you have high stress, emotional stress, physical stress, nutritional stress, this chemical, this chemokine, drops and inflammation ensues. And it's this inflammation, like a fire that's set in the brain, that slowly burns circuitry in the brain. So what happens is you lose regulatory control of breathing. You lose regulatory control of regular heart rate and perspiration and temperature of the body. And they call it POTS syndrome, postural orthostatic syndrome. And the inflammation will destroy chemistry so that the chemical like serotonin that helps you to not be depressed is lost, or the hormone called melatonin that helps you to sleep is lost. So you end up with depression and insomnia and fatigue. And then this is what leads to that downward spiral in our quality of health from stress, prolonged stress. And right now, as you said, the world is filled with stress. So things like meditation, relaxation and meditation can help to reduce cortisol. Deepak Chopra had a wonderful lecture where I've known him since 1999 when we first met. he talked about a study that they did where 15 minutes 3 times a week of meditation can lower cortisol level in half.
Can we measure cortisol levels?
Oh, yeah. In the United States, we can. I don't know about elsewhere, but we can measure it. And you can either measure it salivary. So you do throughout the day, you do maybe 3 or 4 tests of salivary cortisol. And you see if you follow the normal pattern throughout the day. Morning and evening have 2 different levels. And you can see how relaxation can alter it. Or when you're under stress, it should be high. Yeah, but either salivary cortisol or serum from the blood.
And is there a positive application of cortisol in the body, or is it always negative? So we're trying to minimize cortisol.
Cortisol is called an adaptogen. What an adaptogen does, it allows you, when you get on your bike, to develop that power, that ability to sustain your activities. Cortisol, to a level, has a beneficial effect. It allows your body to adapt. When I'm laying down in bed during the night, my cortisol level is low. And the minute I get up, pops up. Why? It's allowing me to adapt from a sedentary activity to an active activity. And we monitor, I used to take care of NFL, and well, my daughter does now, my daughter Allison. And they have higher cortisol levels because they're always active. And when we have them come in within about 24 hours of their intense training, you'll see a spike in their cortisol level. And when they come in a period of vacation, their levels are lower. So
when we talk about someone being stressed, are we talking about they have a high baseline of cortisol and they can't modulate it? They can't turn it on and off like, say, a professional athlete can?
Professional athletes have been able to, their body has adapted. Okay, so prolonged activities, you can adapt to cortisol, won't spike as much. So it's more of a level, we'll say a more normal physiological level. But in new people, when you're exposed to a new threat, like someone who gets scared during Halloween or something like that, their cortisol level will spike. But someone who is used to being scared all the time, they just blow it off. And it's also an issue of testosterone's effect in the area of the brain called the limbic system, which is the emotional center. And on the sides of it, it's called the amygdalas, which if you're low in testosterone, you have a greater startle response. And when you get a startle response, your cortisol levels spike. So hormones regulate that, just to throw in the benefits of testosterone, DHT.
So we're not really looking to blunt our cortisol response completely.
No.
We're looking to have that ability to switch it off and then switch it on.
Correct. It's an important regulatory hormone in our body. It also, under stress, will alter how sugar is used by muscle. So you want to have, in times of need, like running or bicycling, you don't want to stop sugar from getting into your muscles to form glycogen to fuel the muscles. You want to accentuate that. You want to get it into the muscles.
So where's the threshold where cortisol starts to negatively affect our immune system?
Under chronic stress, the level will go up and create that inflammation that I was talking about in the brain. And over persistent levels of elevated cortisol, that's what leads to irritability, body fat composition, loss of weight. It's something called cushingoid. You can lose weight and also have a buffalo hump cushingoid type of symptoms. You can have fatigue too, because you start burning out the system. There's a window of opportunity or window of optimal function. But once you go above it or below it, that's when you start having detrimental effects. So it's all about trying to maintain it in the middle. And, how to do that, certain foods can cause it to go up. Exercises will cause it to go up, but will help you to modulate the level over time, as you just said. You'll adapt.
So if we're continuing to pull at that thread of immunity, if cortisol is something that's negatively affecting it, what are the strategies, foods, or systems we can do to optimize that immune system to make it more robust?
If you want to improve the immune system, we know that testosterone increases cells of the innate immunity, CD4 and CD8. We know that testosterone drops the inflammation in the brain. We know that estradiol protects the brain from inflammation associated with a multitude of things, but one specifically is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a neuroinflammatory process. Multiple sclerosis, nutrition, very important for that. There are supplements that we use in our practice, things like DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, which actually has articles protecting your lungs from COVID cytokine dumping.
I haven't heard about this supplement. Talk to me about this for a second.
DHEA is dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate is the activated form. DHEA is, if you follow cholesterol, becomes pregnenolone, which is called the mother of all hormones. Pregnenolone then becomes DHEA in one pathway, and then down to pregnenolone, progesterone, and cortisol. And the DHEA is important for stimulation of the immune system below the neck, stimulation of immune system, wound healing, drops inflammation. A specific marker called IL-6, interleukin-6, is an inflammatory cytokine. It drops that. Above the neck, it stimulates growth hormone production. That's why taking DHEA at bedtime or after dinner is best, will help to increase in males growth hormone production by 10%, females 15 to 20%. So aside from things like high impact aerobics, you can spike your growth hormone and testosterone. And then by taking DHEA, you can increase your growth hormone production. In the brain, it has anti-depression effect. A major article in 1993 by Dr. Morales dropped depression 30%. It helps stimulate the coating of nerves called myelin. So people with multiple sclerosis, high doses of DHEA will turn on the cells that they call oligodendrocytes to increase myelin production. You get a cold. You feel smarter or less smart? Most people say less smart, and that's because you get interleukin-6 in the brain, and DHEA will help to drop it. So DHEA is very important. And then DHEA becomes testosterone. So it gets
is DHEA
converted.
something you would take daily?
Yes, we take it daily because it boosts the immune system, drops inflammation. And in a study done on 40 to 70-year-old males and females who were taking 50 milligrams of DHEA a night, in 3 months, they had improvement in their cognitive ability and their physical functioning. They were out dancing when before they were limited. So it's a very important, it's a hormone. It's not a pre-hormone, though it does become testosterone. In and of itself, it's beneficial.
And is that dosage you recommend at 50 milligrams, is that a standard dosage you would recommend to patients, or is it like weight dependent?
It's not weight dependent. It's reaction and absorption dependent. In women, we start out 15 milligrams, 15 to 30 minutes after a meal. And nighttime meal is the best because you get the added benefit of increase in growth hormone. For males, we start between 25 milligrams or 50, and that's based on blood test. Everything I do is predicated by the results of labs.
I love that. I'm always so dubious when someone says, like, take 10 units of this, because it's like my absorption has to be totally different from the next person's absorption based on my lifestyle, my genetics, a million different variables.
Absolutely.
Help or hinder that absorption.
Absolutely. That's brilliant, because that is the mistake that a lot of people do. They randomly choose a level, a dose. And this is what I battle with here in the United States with people being put onto injectable testosterone. Many of them don't even need it. They need to have their system turned on. And that's why I don't really use a lot of injectable testosterone. I use a product like Clomid or Eclomid to stimulate your own system to produce its own testosterone. Because the minute you start injecting, your system shuts down. And over a prolonged period of time, which might be a year, 2 years, 3 years, it kills your system. So you can't make your own testosterone.
I'm going to put a pin in testosterone and come back to it because it's something I definitely want to delve into.
Sure.
But just sticking on the supplements around immunity as well. So we have the
Right.
DHEA.
Right.
Would you recommend vitamin D, zinc, any others that you're taking regularly?
Beautiful. Vitamin D is incredible. If you go to Google Scholar, I don't know if you know of Google Scholar.
I know it well. Too many
Okay,
hours spent there.
good. Go put in vitamin D and immunity, and you'll see 113,000 articles. Put in vitamin D and cancer prevention, you'll see 2.3 million articles. And you put vitamin D and heart disease, you'll see 2.2 million. I just got finished doing this for one of my consults I had. And incredible vitamin D. It helps the immune system and stabilizes inflammation. And vitamin D stimulates the immune system. So vitamin D is a primary. We use about 125 micrograms or 250 micrograms. That converts to 5,000 international units to 10,000 international units. And I don't know if you saw on one of the Joe Rogans, I think it was 1589, where he asked me how much vitamin D I was taking. I take 50,000 in one tablet.
My natural reaction would be to say that's a lot, but again, harping back to I don't know what your absorption levels are like.
You
Maybe
got it.
it's
It's
I'm
all
assuming
based,
it's the optimum amount.
right. You have to take vitamin D after food to optimize absorption because it's a fat soluble vitamin. And you're absolutely right. Everybody's guts absorption is different. Now, we use this as a marker if they don't absorb well to consider there's a problem with the gut. Absorption, yes, has a genetic component to it, but the majority of it is what we call dysbiosis. You might heard it's a very common thing we talk about, dysbiosis and leaky gut and so forth. And my daughter, Allison,
Dysbiosis is sorry to cut across. You just clarify for myself and the audience.
sure.
Dysbiosis is the inability to pull nutrients from food. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the reason for it is the balance of the bacteria in the gut is off. Biosis is the biome that deals with the commensallate and the bacteria that help us to absorb food. So when you take an antibiotic, it kills it. So you can have, after antibiotic, you can have a problem with absorption. Also under stress, it changes the way that the system absorbs. So cortisol is not our friend. The vagus nerve in our gut is not our friend. And it can alter and lead to malabsorption. So you're eating all the time and you're always feeling hungry. It could be because your gut's not absorbing. And that could be because of high acid, certain medication you're on, alcohol consumption, except for Irish beer. And get your Guinness. Guinness, my wife drinks tons of Guinness because it has all the great vitamins in it. And that was told to her by her cardiologist. If you're going to drink beer, drink Guinness. Okay.
I think
But
that
I
was
don't like
probably
that little
sponsored by
ball.
Diageo.
They put that little ball inside the cans, you know. But anyway, vitamin D is very important. Another one which people don't really talk about is called 7-keto DHEA. 7-keto DHEA will not only boost the immune system, it'll increase the utilization of fats in the liver called thermogenic. So it can help with use of body fat. 7-keto DHEA, immune stimulating and thermogenics. The other product that you stated was?
Zinc,
Oh,
cortisone.
yeah. Zinc is involved in 300 processes in the body. It's anti-SARS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's anti-influenza A and B. It's anti-cancer. It's anti-Alzheimer's disease by mechanisms that zinc works in. And in the world, about 1 billion people, or they said 1/3 the population of the world, are deficient in zinc. And zinc in the cell blocks COVID, it blocks influenza, it blocks one of the gut bugs, and rhinovirus and the sinus virus. It blocks it. Zinc's important in an anti-inflammatory system in the brain. which is called the SOD, SOD, for superoxide dismutase. Zinc's very important in it. Zinc's an important mineral that we don't take enough of, along with things like copper, chromium, and magnesium. Magnesium for muscle relaxation, for sleep, for helping with asthma. And this has all been documented with the, the Department of Alternative and Complementary Medicine here in the United States.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. As we pedal closer to the end of another year, I can't help but reflect on the highs and lows that come along with it. Whether it's the excitement of the holiday season or navigating the occasional winter blues, it can be a bit of a roller coaster. I've been thinking about how this time of year can be a little bit overwhelming, dealing with the stress and changes that accompany it all. Whether you've ever dipped your toes into therapy or not, let's chat about the bigger picture, benefits, and a language we can all relate to. Think of it as a toolkit for life, a bit of space where you can learn the ropes of positive coping skills, some time for self-reflection, and even somewhere where you can learn how to set those critical boundaries in your life. If you're contemplating the therapy journey, why not give BetterHelp a spin? This is therapy that's entirely online, crafted for ultimate convenience, flexibility, and tailored to your schedule. Just a quick questionnaire to match you with a licensed therapist and the freedom to switch things up at no extra cost anytime. It's therapy on your terms, and I've got to say, the convenience is a total game changer. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/roadman today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/roadman. The details are in the description below.
If somebody's looking to set up this sort of supplement routine for themselves, like you've talked about DHEA, 7-keto DHEA,
Right.
then we have vitamin D, zinc, like when they're going into their doctor and looking for blood tests, I think generally when we go into the doctor, they just sort of say to us, yeah, everything's fine, or
Yes.
it's difficult to pull this out. Like, so I suppose my question is, what are the markers or tests that we should be asking for to know if we need to take these supplements?
I'd have to send it to you on a paper. We have a 28-point biomarker panel, which has been the core of helping us diagnose both civilians and our military with trauma-related hormonal deficiencies. Now, we've assumed that the reason why we lose our hormones is because of through aging, but that loss can be accelerated by traumas, stress, high stress, slip and fall, motorcycle accident, car accident, an assault, being exposed to blast waves, IEDs, repetitive gunfire, and so forth, can change the brain's ability to make these hormones. So you need to look at things like growth hormone and IGF-1, DHEA. I look at DHEAS because I work strictly in the brain. And testosterone, free testosterone is the key, not total. They mostly do total testosterone, which is worthless. It's a bunch of junk. Only 2% of total testosterone is functional free testosterone. So you need to only be speaking about free testosterone. And you need to be in the 50th to 75th percentile of the lab. So if the range for a hypothetical testosterone is between 10 and 90, and you come in at 11, the doctor's going to say you're normal because you're within that parameter. But you're going to say to the doc, I just don't feel well. And hear what they tell the person or the patient, the client, oh, you're just depressed. No, they're not depressed. The level of testosterone just being within the envelope is not sufficient. You need to be up towards the 50th to 75th percentile. The analogy that I use is, okay, you've got 100 pounds in your pocket, and the guy sitting next to you has 1,000,000 pounds in their pocket. I can honestly say you both have money. The question is, which one would you rather be? Okay?
I'll take the mail.
That everybody would take the better. And when you have a higher level, it's therapeutic and not just have it. You know, it's like, that's the difference. Do you just have it, or do you have a a physiological but therapeutic level. We never go outside the limits.
So I said I put a pin in the testosterone, so I want to take that pin out now. But help me paint the broader picture as to how hormone levels change in men as we age.
Great. Well, as we age, men specifically, playing rugby, playing soccer, football, cricket, whatever the game is, or running, or boxing, or MMA, or what have you, the activity actually leads to inflammation in the brain that shuts down an area of the brain called the hypothalamus, which regulates the pituitary gland, the master gland of the brain. And what happens with the hypothalamus, a specific hormone signal called gonadotropic releasing hormone goes to the pituitary and turns on luteinizing hormone, LH, which tells the gonads, our gonads, to make testosterone. You lose that. Inflammation, lose that. In a 2013 beautiful article showing the entire mechanism that they flayed out, we were able to define. And so trauma of any kind, and a lot of people have difficulty with trauma. You know, they get knocked down, they stand up, they brush themselves off, and they get back in the game. But you just had a trauma, and it's called a micro trauma. And this is what's been missed. This is one of my battles with the military's definition of what constitutes a mild traumatic brain injury. You have to have knockdown and confusion and amnesia and possibly loss of consciousness. No, you don't. The analogy I use is you can either have 10 pences or 1 pound. They both equal a pound.
Excuse the short interruption, but I wanted to find a way to bring our little community together, to problem solve, to share training advice, and to support each other in what can sometimes be a lonely road as we all chase health, happiness, and longevity through cycling. To facilitate this, I've set up a Discord channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. It doesn't cost anything to join. It's totally free. Plus, I'm also picking out random winners for spot prizes inside the Discord channel. If you'd like to join it, click on the link down below. Yeah, we're seeing that over here where we have a big culture of boxing. And for a long time, it was thought that the concussions were just the full KOs. But now there's a lot of research into those subconcussive impacts and the cumulative effect of those.
Absolutely. I'm working with an organization called Ring of Brotherhoods, a charitable organization that looks after the boxers after they've left the ring for life, and some major players in there. And they all develop either punch drunk or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. These are all inflammatory processes, and we've been able to reverse the Parkinson's. I just did a podcast where I discussed this in detail. And it's all the fact that this inflammation generates a hormone or a chemical, reactive oxygen species, an inflammatory chemical called nitric peroxynitrite. And the peroxynitrite kills the area of the brain that stops Parkinson's. So it fosters you developing it. So we treat that, and that's how we've been able to reverse it. They're all neuroinflammatory diseases. So I know we got off on testosterone. Go back.
So yeah, like what are the key signs that somebody should be looking out for that they have a hormone imbalance?
Okay, well, here's the benefits of testosterone. Sense of well-being, aplomb, assertiveness, memory, recall, the ability to learn new things, competitiveness, sleeping well, good sex, no depression, your visual creativity, your written creativity, your auditory creativity is all enhanced, and you don't have startle response. These are all the benefits of it. So if you start developing issues with your libido, and it's not drug or alcohol related, because alcohol is horrible. Also, if you don't sleep, you lose 40% of your libido. Okay?
That's crazy.
From stress. So if you don't sleep, it influences your libido and sex drive. Okay.
So when you say don't sleep, how bad a sleep are we talking about?
Tell me what yours is like.
I'm perfect. I'm using Whoop at the moment. So my girlfriend's taking a piss out of me. I've hit like 2 weeks of 100% sleep score. So I'm boxed off on sleep.
Okay, fine. So it's all independent. I sleep 5 hours a night, and that's because I go into such deep sleep. And that's one of the benefits of pregnenolone, progesterone, and allopregnanolone. I take pregnenolone, which is called the mother of all hormones. And what it does is it increases a hormone in our brain called GABA. And GABA is the natural Valium of the brain. So I go into deep sleep rapidly. And I've got a device that measures my brain waves, the alpha delta brain waves. And I thought it was taking me like an hour to fall asleep. I fall asleep within 3 minutes. And it's this
That's solid.
subconscious sleep where you have dilation of time. And what really is a minute perceived when you're in the subconscious as being a lot longer. And I dive deep into REM sleep, into deep sleep, then come up and then go down. Each sleep cycle is about 90 minutes. So I've tested myself and I see why, because I was concerned. I was only sleeping 5 hours and wake up feeling phenomenal. Now I'll be 71 years of age in January 20th. And most of my 40-year-old colleagues, don't believe that I stand on stage for 8 hours straight lecturing on the stuff that I do. And they're having difficult time with 1 or 2 hours of lecturing, So I've been on treatment for 30 years.
So who do you think is a good candidate for it? Are we calling it hormone replacement therapy, or are we looking at is there a different phrase for it?
What I would do is a wellness assessment. Okay, you can call it anti-aging, age management, hormone assessment, whatever. But it's wellness, because what keeps us well is having good levels of hormones, homeostatic, great levels of hormones throughout the system. So if you're 30 years of age and you have had a history of playing sports, you should get a baseline done. And then based on that baseline, you, not the doctor, you get a copy of the lab results and you do the math. And what's the math? On the side it says reference range. And the reference range might be between 1 and 9. You take the 1, add it to 9, that gives you 10, divide it by 2, and that gives you a 5. So if your level is 1 and the median, the midpoint is 5, you're low normal. You're in the first quartile, okay? Quartiles, every range you can break into 4 segments. The first 25%, the second 25%, the third 25%, and the fourth 25%. So 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. We optimize between 50 and 75. This is for us, our therapeutic range or target. Not everybody needs it. We've had people who were 42 and doing great, but they started off at 20. Okay. So you can, on every one of those results, you can do your own math and see whether or not you're below the 50th percent or higher than the 50th percent. Okay.
And if somebody's in a non-optimum range, would you always default to external testosterone, or would you first explore natural ways to boost it?
If the relationship between testosterone and the stimulating hormone for testosterone, luteinizing hormone, you look at those two. If luteinizing hormone is high and testosterone is low, it means that the stimulating effect of the luteinizing hormone on the testes is not working. And that could be due to damage to the testicles. And damage could be physical damage. It could be thermal damage. It could be from abuse of testosterone in the past. And now from a 2018 article from Denmark, it shows that ibuprofen will shut down the testicles so they don't respond to luteinizing hormone. That's one. The other is if luteinizing hormone is low, your testosterone is going to be low. Now, the question is, why in a 20-year-old is luteinizing hormone low? The most common reason is because of trauma. And if you go into their history, you say, tell me all the minor accidents you have. Because if you say, tell me all the major traumas you've had, they'll say none. Because they perceive that the trauma is a car accident, loss of consciousness. You've got to go and make it real simple to answer any kind of, minor accidents you have, because they add up. They're accumulative.
Well, talk to me about that, because how does that affect it? Because I don't imagine there's one bike rider listening to this or watching this that hasn't had multiple crashes. I know
Correct.
over the course of my cycling career, I've 8, 9 broken bones. Some of them you tagged them as inverted commas trivial, but there's no trivial broken bone. Like breaking a collarbone is traumatic, no matter what way
Correct.
you package this up.
Correct. That's a very good point. There was a study done where they looked at women who had a fracture of a bone, no head trauma, no history of head trauma, but they fractured a bone. What they found were personality changes because the inflammatory chemistry from the fracture site went directly into the brain and created the inflammation that led to the loss of hormones. So how did they know they lost hormones? Their menstrual cycle went off. So you can have why is dysbiosis so important to us? Here in the United States, we have something called gut-brain syndrome. So you can have inflammation, dysbiosis, malabsorption, allergies, certain meds, drugs, alcohol that create an inflammatory condition, MELU, in the gut. And those inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, cytokines. These are the immune system's inflammatory messengers to try and deal with areas of damage, infection, what have you. Okay? So bones can do that. Micro traumas. That's what all your guys have had. And when they fall off a bike, it ain't a micro trauma. It is a trauma.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
it's an acceleration, deacceleration injury. It's like you being in a car and you have to stop short. What happens is your brain continues to move forward and hits the front of the skull inside, damages the frontal portion. When they've done studies, the frontal lobe is the most common one to be traumatized. And in Alzheimer's disease, the frontal lobe dementia or Alzheimer's usually starts in the frontal. That's the area of the greatest amount of trauma. And then the other is the backside. So why do we start losing our vision? Maybe it's the head bopping, going to a Metallica concert, having the head bopping or whatever. I don't know who currently is in the metal world. But
Metallica
anyway.
still cool.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Going into the marsh pits and everything, jumping off the stage and not being caught.
Testosterone's often in the spotlight, but are there other key hormones that we should be mindful of?
Yes. Whenever you use testosterone, you have to use DHEA and pregnenolone. And the reason is testosterone, when you inject it, shuts off luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is the key for turning on the production of hormones in the brain. So when you use testosterone, you shut off luteinizing hormone, which shuts down 35 plus hormones in the brain. And the literature shows in 4 to 6 months of starting testosterone only, you'll develop agitation, irritability, insomnia, personality change. It's because testosterone by itself is dangerous. And I basically say that there's nothing for free. You can't do something and not expect some negative outcome. But what we've learned is that you can protect the individual by adding DHEA and pregnenolone. So those are two cardinal. The other one's vitamin D is a hormone. It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Very important, vitamin D. Let's see, pregnenolone, DHEA. That is the core, along with zinc. Zinc has some benefits. It blocks estradiol.
And I've heard you in previous podcasts mentioning cortisol.
Oh, quercetin with a Q.
Yes.
Quercetin, phenomenal. Quercetin, I started using quercetin when I used to take care of the NFL between 95 and 2007. Quercetin functions to increase mitochondria. In a week, it can double the amount of mitochondria. The importance of mitochondria, they're the energy power plants for our cell. So if you can increase energy production, you can increase your endurance, your recovery. So quercetin has that benefit. Quercetin is also what they call an ionophore. Ionophore carries metals into the cell. What's the important metal? is zinc. So one of our treatments, if you go to my website, article I wrote in May of 2020, quercetin helps to bring zinc into the cell, and zinc blocks COVID replication. It downregulates the replicase, which is the genetic code for making more virus. Also, quercetin increases something called IGF binding protein 3, insulin-like growth factor binding protein 3, which is anti-cancer. And then the quercetin also lowers something called NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is a trigger to go into our nucleus and turn on up to 400 genomes, the majority of them being inflammatory. So the benefit of quercetin is on 4 levels, is beneficial to the system across the board. So I take about 500 milligrams twice a day is my baseline. When you're considering viral exposure, I go to 1,000 twice a day with 30 milligrams of zinc. Okay. But if you take high doses of zinc, you need to make sure that you're taking a good source of natural iron, vegetables, and you have a good level of copper, because the zinc, when it gets too high, will take out copper and iron. So copper is part of the energy production system and the immune system. I mean, it's so convoluted. That's why I love this area. It's not just a straightforward pathway.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And it seems to be changing all the time. And I think that's why viewers do have difficulty with figuring this out, because they don't have time to constantly unpack it. So it is brilliant. I will point listeners and viewers to your website. I'll add it in the show notes because it's a great resource.
There. Yeah, a lot of education there under the science. TBI help now this science.
Another one that I'd love to pick your brain on that's getting a lot of populist attention at the moment, largely because Dr. Peter Attia's book, which is a great read as well, is rapamycin. Have you played around with that, or do you have thoughts on it?
No, I've heard of it, but I really haven't gotten a lot of tangential, since my core area in neuroimmunoendocrinology is taking up a lot of time in defining that for me. So my educational parameters have expanded. As you just said, it's been, education, information is expanding. So I've seen it, and the ways that it's supposed to help on inflammation.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, even how they discovered it, which he tells brilliantly in his book. I won't rehash it now, but it's there for anyone to check it out. Right. I suppose, I'd love to know, because this has been a fascinating conversation that's opened my eyes, and I'm going to pick your brain further off air about how I can optimize my own supplement routine. But why do you think this isn't more mainstream available information? Why are people struggling to get this information?
The main reason is because you don't get the support from the healthcare providers, because healthcare providers are reactive. They're not proactive. So reactive, you come in with a problem, they treat that problem, but they're not going to give you the proactive how to avoid the problem in the future. So it means that we have to go and do our own research. And that's what got me started back in, 1997 by reading it. And my story is I had 6 head traumas and developed depression, was put on antidepressants. And my escape is reading. So in the course of my reading, I came across this relationship between hormones and mood. And I went and got my hormones checked, and I was deficient in growth hormone, testosterone, and thyroid. And within 90 days of getting replenished on that, I started feeling phenomenally well. You've got to go and do your own reading, or rely on sources. Our website has a lot of educational material. If you just read the abstract and the introduction, it'll give you great information. And I've just published 5 new papers on the website in our new series, which will help to give education in a soft manner, and then give you how to deal with the problems or deal with the issues. There's a paper which is called Phase 2 Protocol, which is available to the UK, which is our treatment protocol for things like traumatic brain injury. I've got 36 people in the UK who are presently on that protocol. What started me in the UK, I don't know if you know the story, is in 2020, I was sent an email request by the Ministry of Defense from the UK. They invited me to Imperial College to go and give an explanation to the military surgeon general of why their top SAS people were coming into Los Angeles to get assessed and treated. And my simple answer over the email was, maybe they want to get better. So I went there, simple, right? Practical approach. So I went there and gave a presentation, and for 4 hours they attacked me. Imperial College doctors there attacked me, but they could not refute the science that I brought of 489 cases and the science behind it. I brought a booklet that I put together of research studies, not by me, by the world, and handed it to the Surgeon General. And the end result was we were granted funding for a project in the Queen's Hospital in Birmingham. And unfortunately, what happened next was COVID. So we were there January and March. It was COVID, so it wiped that out. But we have military in the UK that are on protocol and doing phenomenally well.
It's been a fascinating and eye-opening discussion in so many ways, Dr. Mark. I thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, and I'm going to add in a link to your website, which I thoroughly recommend everyone checking out, into today's show notes. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this chat, you're going to absolutely love the conversation I had with intermittent fasting expert Cynthia Turlow. Her advice specifically around breakfast changed how I eat forever. You can click it just here.